Welcome. I'm Doug from HD Ellsworth. The D in HD, if you don't get it, you're definitely not my wife, and this is Dying to Retire. Join me on a candid journey from my government job to the freedom of retirement. As one of the last of the baby boomers, I am hanging up my federal badge and diving into what comes next. I will talk about what led to my decision, on why it was time for me to retire, and what I did right, and what mistakes I have made. I am not an HR expert, nor am I a financial advisor, so I have made a few mistakes. When I can, I'll slice through the noise of today's headlines with a sharp, no-holds-barred commentary delivered with the kind of honesty only retirement can afford. This podcast is a safe space for non-woke people, and while I try to keep everything somewhat above board, and if it has to be said bluntly, it will be. Vegas rules apply here, so let's get started. Retirement. It's the elusive dream many of us all chase. That's what I'm chasing right now. And yet, this path is often shrouded with confusion and uncertainty. And it seems there's a bit of misunderstanding between husbands and wives regarding the meaning of retirement and retirement planning. And my house is no exception. So, for the upteenth time, domestic tranquility flashback there, just let me break this misunderstanding down with a dash of humor, or hopefully it comes across as humor. Because let's face it, humor is the only way to look at this, because this will drive us men batshit crazy if we try to handle it any other way. So here's the deal. Many wives, our wives, long-term girlfriends, if that's your situation, seem to have this preconceived notion that when a husband retires or says they're going to retire, in the woman's mind, the husband will magically turn into a couch potato that just lounges around the house all day doing absolutely nothing. And it's like, and I'm talking in generalities here, that wives envision their husbands, when they retire, they will transform into a sloth-like creature glued to the recliner, remote in hand, with a never-ending supply of snacks. All the while, the grass keeps growing, becomes 3 feet tall in the front yard, the backyard. We husbands can only wish. We still know we have to do that. For me, here in Montgomery County, Maryland, the city would likely fine me because one of my neighbors would report me. Yes, we have a special one or two here. Also, that won't happen here because she never let me get that super comfortable lazy boy recliner I wanted. You know, the comfortable one that perfectly reclined. You almost could get that 0G or almost perfect 0G that had the USB plug-ins, so you never had to be searching for the cords and everything. That one. Why? Because she thought it looked ugly. No matter how comfortable it looked ugly and didn't match the furniture that she liked, but openly admitted was uncomfortable. Make that make sense. So, let's flip the script for a moment. When a wife says she is going to retire, we husbands do not suddenly have this notion that our wives are suddenly going to permanently sit their asses on the couch, grow it, their ass, not the couch, larger and not in a good way, by eating ice cream, eating bonbons, and continuously watching or catching up on the soap operas that they've all missed and the harpies on The View. No. That's not what comes into a man's mind. So why are we so different? Why is it that when I'm retiring, I suddenly become a lazy man in my wife's eyes? But if my wife is retiring, it's time for her and us, by extension, to kick back, travel, and relax. Well, in my optics, it all boils down to where the historical gender roles and expectations that many people have, primarily women, do not bump up against or are running up against today's social norms. You know, the ones in which women now work, make their own money. You go boss girl, and her money is her money, and yet your money is her money too. Again, make it make sense. So I hate to say it, in my assessment and observations, while women have said over the years that equality was the goal, having the same opportunities as men, which means pay and the status in the workplace. However, in my optics, these goals, for the most part, never included the two most important things that men include in the same equation. the two such things called accountability and responsibility. Men include these two crucial things in their retirement planning, and I'm talking about men, not boys, for they're not just thinking about themselves, they're thinking about the family unit. Most women, regardless of whether they're married or not, see retirement more often than not as a solo event, their event. I know that part doesn't seem so funny, but it does if you really think about it, especially for those old enough, boomers, old enough to remember that old Virginia Slim's tagline, "You've come a long way, baby." Well, that coming a long way, baby, apparently didn't quite mean what we thought it meant back then. I once heard a comedian say that in every relationship, there is a me we, she we, and a we when a wife is talking about us, the couple. And it makes me think he was onto something. These days, when a husband retires, his retirement is seen as a we thing, in which he is supposed to, even in retirement, bear the responsibility or the majority of the responsibility when it comes to paying bills, even after he dies. Yes, after he dies. If not, it was never a we did not save enough. It was a we did not plan and save enough. I'm not lying. However, when a woman retires, it is often seen as a we thing. You've come a long way. You've come a long way, baby. My ass. I think this double standard, however, when a wife retires, it's often seen as a we thing. You've come a long way, baby. My ass. I think this double standard from women when it comes to the sexes is due to it is genetically coded into their brains. Not all, just most. When a woman retires, she is seen as the grand lady who deserves it for all the work she has done as a woman, even if it is more perception than reality. When a man retires, unless he is that millionaire that you see on the Lifetime or Hallmark channels, the ones who have essentially lost their man card, aka balls, and come across of having more estrogen than most 25-year-old girls. Yeah, men are seen not as him, as more of going from the hardworking man and provider to that of being a slouch on the couch. And that's what all the TV shows reflect nowadays, correct? Systematic sexism is alive and well today in my optics. It's just not the way most people think it is, for there is more open misandrist than there is any open misogynist out there these days. Now, getting back on track. But did the wives ever look at this bright side of things and think your husband finally has the time to clean up all that junk in the garage or the house that you both accumulated over the years? And it's time to get rid of it because it's now time to start downsizing? Nope, didn't think so. That gene and the systematic programming is hard to overcome. Now, I know you hear a little negativity in my voice. It's because my wife, she who shall not be named, and I have had these discussions a time or two. While she knows it will not be the case, she openly admits it's hard to talk about this subject. For the first image that comes to her mind is that men are supposed to work until they die or they're considered lazy. This is because, in my optics and her experience and a tad bit of culture, from her titos to her primos, they worked until they died or retired, then soon afterward died. And then her titos or primas, abuelas, you name it, when widowed or retired, moved from family member's house to family member's house until they died, living on the money her husband had saved for the wee retirement years that never came. This especially sucks for the dude. Now, we have to have a strategy, a retirement strategy. But here's the thing. Retirement doesn't have to be a one-way ticket to being a couch potato. Just like when we're working, or even more so, we need to have plans. We need to have a strategy. Mine is getting the heck out of the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland, and move to a home more affordable in Guatemala, where my wife is from. Get rid of the above. But here's the thing. Retirement doesn't have to be a one-way ticket to being a couch potato. Just like when we were working, or even more so, we need to have plans. We need to have a strategy. Mine is getting the heck out of the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland, and have a home in a much more affordable place, Guatemala. Yes, I'm playing the reverse Uno card here. However, I need to communicate my retirement strategy and openly set realistic retirement expectations with my wife to do it successfully. On the flip side, wives need to check the default settings of today's pseudo boss bitch era, which is implanted by pick something, you'll likely be right, into their heads that when a husband retires, they end up being a lazy bum. He may surprise you. He may even take over some of the household chores you've said he never does. Or is it he actually does them? He just doesn't make a show about it. Now let's close this segment. Despite all those jabs, despite how true they are, retirement should be a time for both the husband and wife to enjoy and make the most of their retirement years, regardless of whether they both retire at the same time or not. So let's ditch the outdated assumptions and the genetic encoding. Retirement is a new chapter for both of us, both of you. It is not the end. All I'm saying is that we should embrace it with a strategy that includes humor, understanding, willingness to adapt, and maybe, just maybe, a margarita or 3. Now, I know my wife is probably going to hurt me if she ever listens to this episode, and I'll probably end up sleeping on the couch for a day or 2. But ladies, do you really think that's punishment? I'm going to be on the couch. I can put a nice warm blanket over me, take my pillow down there, watch the TV, because that's usually where the big screen TV is, or have my headphones on, whatever I want to do. I can pull the fan really close to me, have it on full blast in my face like the way I like to sleep, and have my rest of my body covered, but the air moving over my face, and I won't be hearing, it's so cold, turn it off, you're snoring too loud, all this other shit. So really, is it punishment? Think about that. Moving on. Now, not to dive into politics, because even though I'm conservative libertarian, I think both sides, as a podcaster I listen to, are path to hell. Just one's a quicker path than the other because they don't represent people anymore. And I kind of firmly believe with him when he says they should all serve 2 terms, 1 term in office and the other term in jail. However, I have to bring up this thing that happened, I think last week. A movie star, a very beautiful young lady by the name of Jennifer Lawrence, and the news article says, Jennifer Lawrence roast Mike Pence at some media awards event. Well, here's what's funny on there. Okay. 1, I grew up in the times when we'd do the Dean Martin roast, the Jerry Lewis roast, name a movie star, Johnny Carson roast, whatever, in the 70s and 80s, a little bit in the 80s. And to be able to roast someone, they have to actually care what the fuck you say, what the hell you think. And as roasting is kind of a humorous way where both you can take it and they take things that you've done to extreme to make it kind of funny. However, I don't think Mike Pence really gives a shit what Jennifer Lawrence said or has been saying about him and his conservative views. So I don't believe you can call that a roasting. So the news articles all make it sound like it's a big bad thing that she did, but it was a very limited audience that actually even saw it. And it didn't hit the person she's intending to roast. So how is that a freaking roast? It's not, because he didn't care what they said. His people don't care what you said. So it's all a bunch of hype. Just saying. That's it for today. Curious, concerned, or just want to chat? I'm all ears. Reach out at dyingtoretirepodcast@gmail.com. And if you find yourself nodding along or you just enjoy the ride, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hasta luego.